All right, Otter Danger Dan, how many pieces of corn did you get down before the stream started? Because I will start early just to make it up. Oh no, you don't have to YouTube it. We're going to be lubricating today as well. And just like that, yeah, I guess I got started at my 10-minute countdown a little bit late, so darn it, we're just going to get going. Well, welcome on in, everybody, to the Dragon's Den. My name is Digital Dragon. I will be your host today. Thank you for coming on in and joining us. We're going to be working on our Rook 2020 Mark II build today. You want to give a big shout out to Karen Chow for this really cool banner that you're seeing. Still need to move my little counters, up here to the far right corner so they're out of the way so you can see a little bit more of my, maybe I'll leave them there so you don't see as much of the shiny off the top of my head. Hey, Zombie Hedgehog, welcome on in. Welcome on in. We're going to be talking about the Rook 2020 and working on that build today. Hey, Shenanigans, welcome in. And Tugboat, like I said, don't worry about it. Don't try and speed lubricate things. That's always a bad thing. Grab yourself some gloves, get your lube, and we'll get started on lubing our rails. We don't want to lose our ball bearings, but we're going to lube our rails and we're going to lube our LM8 LUU bearings. Yeah, got to watch them reflections. I mean, it gets shiny up there real fast. You don't need gloves. It's just a little bit easier. You happen to be an expert at the Mark II? Yeah, you just finished building one, didn't you, Zombie? Just finished building one. So I'm going to flip the screen over here real fast and say that my first late cup of coffee coming out of the MakerMind Nexus cup. And this is Black Rifle Coffee Company Freedom Fuel. Yeah, well, my 2020 Mark I has made it to Murph twice, 3D Printopia, and Rocky Mountain. So it's well traveled. And eventually this will replace the Rook 2020 Mark I that's been at the KB3D table. So I've been kind of running around a bit, and I realized, oh wait, as I pulled up the CAD, that we would be probably wanting to work on mounting the Z motor, which would also entail doing the geared Z drive. And I'm like, ooh, wait, I don't think I have a closed loop belt. I think I have a closed loop belt. I don't know if I have the right size. So I'm going to have to double check that and maybe pick one up at KB3D next week. And I say that, Chris, too, because now that you're here, Chris, too, are you working next week at KB3D, like Monday through Wednesday or whatever it is before the 4th of July? Mark II print sharks. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Zombie. This is a standard 2.4 belt. I may have some, but the closed loop belts that I immediately saw were bigger. I think they're for one of the droid builds I was doing or something. No, I think it might be the one for the dragster. Hey, 3D Medic Vents, how's it going? I'll be in and out. I kind of do whatever hours are necessary. Chris is the major dude. Okay, the reason I'm asking, I'm planning on coming up there like Monday next. So I may do some shopping or grab some stuff that I'm gonna need, and then while I'm up there, and I need to bring something by the shop. So definitely wanted to make sure that I could stop by. So one thing I want to say, and those of you that were at Murph, you will realize I was printing with a filament that looked like almost white with kind of a shade of blue. I want you to know that that is this filament from Polar Filaments. This is their Magicolor. And this is what it looks like when it's not 98 degrees and 98% humidity. So this is a standard blue color, this filament is. When it prints almost like a translucent white because it's at hot temperature. So once again, here is that print. And yes, I am grabbing hold of that. We're going to see if we can get it to change color. So this is a color changing filament from Polar Filaments. And I didn't realize how deep dark blue it was because it was almost this color when it came to me. And I was trying to print with it. So yeah, this is really cool. This is really, really cool. Yeah, so it's a blue that'll change to white if it gets really warm. So it's really good. And apparently I had a layer shift on this center section here. So his little flippers don't. Yeah, you can see where I was touching it at the bottom. So yeah, this is a really cool color shift filament. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. As we go through our time, we'll show some of the filaments we grabbed at the show. Today we're going to dig through a little bit of the Polar filament. We did get their Vivid Orange. This is their PLA. We got some Bubble Gum PLA. Also a nice color. And then they're starting to run ASA. So this is a light gray ASA. So I didn't want to open it back up or open it up just yet, but this is a lighter gray. I know K2 Kevin likes a dark gray, and this is a really light gray. But I picked up the 3 spools of ASA that they had left, and I figure I'd give it a shot here over the next few days, running some of that here in the Dragon Den. So we'll run some of that through. Definitely going to do some more of these. This is really, yeah, Polar prints very well. Yeah, I picked up like 4 rolls at the Polar booth. We also got some Greengate filament, but I didn't go wild and get too much more than that. So what we're going to do right now, we shouldn't be into any wiring today, Tugboat. In fact, we're specifically not going to do any wiring today. Or at least that's not my plan. So, but we will get on some gloves if you have gloves. If not, don't worry about it. It's all good. You don't have to have it. It's just for streaming, whenever you're using grease, it's easier to have gloves because you can just take them off and throw them in the garbage can. You don't have to sit there and run around and wash your hands so you don't keep getting grease all over everything. And we're going to start with the easier parts. Like I said, these were packed previously. Of course, they came off of a working printer, but I am going to repack them with a little bit more grease just because it's been a while, and now that they're off, might as well go through and repack them with some fresh grease. You need at least 5 hours of prep time for soldering. Ah, gotcha. So I've got one of these tips, and these tips are designed for these bearings and specifically the standard Element UU, which, yeah, the Element UU, which is this size. Okay. It goes right on there and it fully closes. I believe there's a version of this you can print out for an Element or Element LUU, which, as you can tell, is almost twice the size. Right? But for our purposes, it is going to work for us because what you would do is you would take these slots and you would line them up with the bearing runs in the bearing. And that way, when you start to squeeze, it's going to go right into the bearing channels and pack those channels. So for now, I'm just going to squeeze some grease in there. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but there is a glob of grease coming out of the top above this. So you can kind of see there's some glob of grease in there. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our rods and we're simply going to insert the rod in the bearing, putting our finger over the other side. And that is going to squish that into the ball races. So you can do this once or twice. This is all we're going to do. It's going to work that grease into the ball races because it can't go through this, right? So just open your tube, squirt a gob in here, and then take your rod, put it in, cover the end, and push through. Just go slowly because you're going to have fairly dry bearings to start with. Yep, Liz, it is time for lube. Liz knows what time it is. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and take my little adapter off, maybe get it to come off. I don't think I'm going to. So I'm going to just go ahead and continue to line this up and squirt a little bit more grease in here. Okay, and that's all we're doing is working that grease into the channels, right? And then what you can do with this extra grease is don't just wipe it off and throw it away. Wipe it off and use it to pre-pack down the side of the other one. This is why I say, don't worry, it's going to be messy. If you've got gloves, great. If you don't worry about it. Just know that you're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup. Lube action. There you go. I figured Pezlas would do that. Okay. Wipe those off in a second because I know I got lube all over this hand now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rails. I'm going to put it down on a piece of paper towel. And I'm going to say that is going to be somewhat critical. Put it down on some paper towel because if any of your ball bearings come out, you want them to be on a towel because if they're on something like this surface, they'll roll everywhere. And I'm going to start by just pulling my rail off about halfway. You'll notice I still have some grease here where I was greasing my other bearings. No need to waste it. We'll just add it right into these. And all we're going to do is we're going to push it into the bearings in the race on one side. Squirt out a little bit more grease. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Making sure that we didn't take any balls out. And then we're just going to very slowly and gently push this back on. If you start to see a ball pop out, stop, pull it back out, use a pair of tweezers to push the ball back in, and then you can put your finger down in there. What you're looking to do is hold the spring tensioner against the balls, and that will keep them in place and keep them from squishing out. Probably get a little bit of grease on the edge of your thing there. Wipe that off and you'll use it in the next round. I'm going to work this around to get that grease fully going through the ball bearings and the channels on the inside. Then what I like to do is clean up, any excess grease on the truck, just so we're not making a mess later on as we're doing things. And you see me wiping the rail down as well. The only place that the ball bearings, which we just lubricated, are touching this rail is right along that channel there. So this lower slab piece, this back, the top, all that's doing is it's just going to get pushed around by the wipers and it's going to get on everything. So, and I'm having to put very little grease in these because they've been previously packed. All I'm doing is adding a little bit extra. Okay. I'm just adding a little bit extra because these have been run for a while. This printer's been in action for, I believe, about a year, maybe a little bit more. So I'm just adding a little bit to the ball bearings to refill them up. If you have like Mobilux EP2 in a syringe that you could get from KB3D, West 3D, Fabrico, DFH, pick the place that you like to shop, then you would have the ability to put a bead right on top of those balls and then just push it in. But the key here is to go real slow. Don't be afraid to back off and use a pair of tweezers to get those ball bearings back where they belong. You need to. Then we just want to work them back through those races to get that grease distributed through the ball bearings and the raceways internal to the linear rail. There is another way where you can squirt, like line this up on one of your holes and squirt down in the hole. But that's basically, you're having to get through the hole, around the slight gap between the rail and the carriage, and then roll it around. And it wastes a lot. You wind up picking a lot of grease back out of that hole. So this is very easy to do. It's just, you got to be careful and be a little, I don't want to say meticulous, but just be careful. And you should lube all 3 of your carriages. So yeah, even the shorter one, this is your X gantry. So you'll do this the same way. You'll just take it off, or pull the rail about halfway out of the carriage, get a dab of grease on your finger, push it into the ball raceways on both sides. Wipe off as much as you can on your finger and just keep it there. So you'll slide this back part way, get a gob of grease, wipe it into that channel, wipe off the extra, wipe it into the other channel as much as you can, wipe off as much extra as you can. Slowly, you'll have to lift this end up because you're kind of at an angle now. Lift it up and slowly move it forward. If any balls are starting to pop out, just take, get them back in there with a pair of tweezers. Take one of your fingers and put down right in front of that rail, and it'll help squish the springs that are holding the balls in the raceways to either side. Slowly move this forward until you get the carriage back on, and just barely get the carriage on and look at the end. You'll have a glob of grease here probably, and if any balls came out, it should be on that blob of grease. So you can really figure out, okay, which side of the grease was it on? That's the side the ball came out of, the side it needs to go back in. Pull the rail back down some, use a pair of tweezers, put that ball back in between the spring and the raceway. Once again, take your finger, kind of roll it down in there to push the spring over, and glide that rail on slowly. And then once you get the carriage on there, you wipe off any excess grease on your finger, then grab the truck, move it back and forth to work that grease in as much as possible. And if you need to, switch it around and come out the other side some, pack the other side and do the same thing. So you alternate the sides, and that'll help you get these nice and greased up. And then of course, cap your grease again. This tube has lasted me about 1.5 to 2 years of doing builds. And you've seen how many borons I've done, 0 Gs. So the Annex Engineering K3, which has 9 rails. So you just want to take your time and slowly work through it. You don't want to make a big mess. And then if you need to, like I'm going to do right here, Because I can see the greasy swirls still on my table, I'm just going to put a little bit of IPA there, wipe my table down. That'll help clear off any of the residual grease that was left on the table. Normally I would have a silicone pad up here while I'm doing this as well. But doing it on a paper towel really helps, especially keep the balls from running away from you. Because this now has some grease residue in it, you want to throw that away. You don't want to keep it and reuse it to wipe down your beds or anything. Hey Timur, how's it going? Okay, done with the interim cup between work and the stream. Now we're going to our Dunkin' run. So at some point Dunkin's gonna have to like sponsor me. As much Dunkin' coffee as we drink on this channel. Move the lid around so it away from the steam, and preferably we get a. Nope, we're not going to get Dunkin' label that way. Dragons run on Dunkin'. Yes, they do. Hey, Polymorph, how are you doing today? At least this dragon runs on. Yeah. It's like Stream Manager was not. There we go. That's a lot. Folks, I'm going to sit down shortly here because back's starting to hurt. And my plan today is going to start to work from the bottom up. So the deck panel on up. And because I know I don't have some parts I'm going to need for that geared Z, I am going to kind of hold off on that. One thing I do want to show you guys is I swapped out the feet. So these are the feet that came with the Fabrico Rook kit. Put that right next to this one. You'll kind of see there's a major height difference. So these feet here, now there's two things you can do. You can get the regular standard feet and then try and print a spacer to get this up high enough. But what we were trying to get is, here's the standard frame, right? With the motor and the gear drive over here, we need to go up even higher. So what I did was I looked at the CAD to bring that up real. I think 180. Yeah. So I pulled up the CAD here and I just zoomed in. And I was like, oh, well, it looks like there's two different bodies there. That's a body and that's a body. Yeah, it's one body. It's built like two different pieces, but it exports out as one body. You could potentially get this body or measure the height and do some, pull it out. You might be able to right click it and say export just that piece. But what I did was highlighted the whole thing. Went over to utilities, under the make, right next to your design, there's a make. Click on that, say 3D print, and it will give you a setup to say, okay, you want to do this one body, export it as a binary STL, pick your application, and once you get that set up, which this should be, I did this over on my Mac, so this should actually be set up to go over to, oh, what am I thinking? Prusa, right? So you'd have to go through and select from your computer, find the application file for Prusa, and get it going. And once you get that set, you'll be able to say OK here, and it will export that body out as a as an STL. So if you ever needed to reprint any of these parts, you can highlight that body. If you didn't have the STLs, like there's, was it the Doron Velta? It has the CAD, but it doesn't have the STLs exported out. So since there were not, these bodies weren't exported out, I right-clicked it, I exported it out, and then I printed it in TPU. So Tugboat, if you did a download all from printables.com, there will be a CAD folder along with all the STLs, and in there is this step file. So open up your Fusion 360 and you can load the step file. Hey, the Shrimp Father, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. So kind of what I'm doing here is the other thing you can do if they've modeled it correctly is you see how I just came in here and I've got this screw highlighted. If I double click that screw, down here in the bottom right, it tells me that's an M3 by 8. And from looking at it, I can tell it's a socket head cap. Oh, you can't tell because okay. So I've double clicked on this and it shows up down here in the bottom right that that is an M3 by 8. If I click on this one right here, which is the M5 screw, get it highlighted, double click, that's an M5 by 8. Now I'm using M5 by 10s because I don't have but like, I don't know, 5 or 6 M5 by 8s and they're button head cap screws. I realize that I still have the clearance, but I am just adding an M5 washer underneath the head just to take up a little bit of space. It's all good in this case. Normally, I want to say on a Voron, we're using M5 by 10 and M3 by 10. Anyhow, I don't think we're. And part of that is just to reduce the overall number of screw types in the BOM, screw lengths. Hey, Big Jano, how's it going? So you'll see me referring back to this document every so often, just so I can look and I'll hide some things to see like, hey, what's this or what's that? Like I was looking over here and noticing, okay, the big gear is a printed gear, which means I need a, whatchamacallit, I'll need a 20-tooth pulley. I'll need one of these on the actual motor. I'll need one of these that'll go in the 80-tooth pulley unless you have the all-metal one. And then it's got a shaft that goes through it that's going to be an M5 shaft. Be a D shaft, it could be a straight round shaft. I've got a bunch of different sizes right here from just needing stock. But what I've found is double clicking on this, it just gives me a body. It does not tell me how long that is. So literally what I would have to do is, and I'm not even sure, I think under one of these, there is a measure tool. And what you would have to do is sit here and turn around, zoom around, so you could get to the front edge here and highlight that face, right? Then you're going to scoot around here, probably hide some things. Click. Hide. And you would highlight this space that you can get a measurement and it'll tell you how long that measure is. I know it's M5. I'm just going to kind of play it by ear, kind of do a quick measure right here when the time comes. It's going to probably be an M5 by 40. Most likely, it's going to be the same closed loop belt, and it's going to be size and the same M5 shaft size as a Boron 2.4, right? So many hidden sketches. I haven't hidden too many, but I'm sure that you probably have a bunch, Big Jano. All we needed to lube was our 2 Element UUs and our 3 rail carriages. Once you're done lubing those, we're done lubing. We shouldn't have any more lubing. So if you're done with that, you should be good to clean up from the lube. Take these and wipe them off because I got lube all over the outer edges of them. Yeah, well, and that's the thing, Big Jano, is it depends on how it was modeled. If it was modeled and saved as a part or an object and then assembled, then it's a little bit easier. But yeah, every time you go over like a screw, it like models every single thread and it's just a pain in the butt. So once we have that done, and before we can set our bottom plate in, we're going to need to get our rails or our linear rods in. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to get one of your corner pieces, right? Let me go to the big screen. You're going to need to get one of your corner pieces and one of your 8mm linear rods. Okay. Doesn't matter which side you use, but we're going to push the rod in. Now, if you want the rod to be a good friction, if it's loose and you can just shove it straight through, well, yeah, it'll be okay because once you mount it, there is something that it's going to sit on. So if it's too tight, don't try and ram it on there because you'll break the part most likely. Use a 8mm drill if you have it. If you've got an 8mm reamer, that's even better because a drill's not going to make a perfect circle, but a reamer will. So just get this on a nice hard surface and you should be able to push it down in there. And you want it all the way down. So that it's flush with the bottom like that. Okay. And the open spot is the front. These are going to go in the back 2 corners. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of set this in place and get our holes or our M5 roll-in T-nuts lined up. Hopefully they're close and you can just use a pair of tweezers to bring them in line. Just like that. And once again, we're going to be using M5 by 8 button head or socket head, whatever you have. I've got M5 by 10s here. So I'm going to grab me a couple of these and I'll grab some washers just to throw a washer up underneath it. Take up some of that excess so I'm not driving the screw into the backside of the 2020 channel. So this is your corner piece, right? It looks like the little flying corner pieces. You should have 4 of these. 2 at the bottom, and you're going to push your rod through. And you want it to be flush. Push your rod through until it's flush. It's going to be a fairly tight fit, but it will go, I promise you. And then you're just going to get this set up in the corner, and you're going to move your M5 peanuts that we pre-positioned in there. If you're using the hammerheads, you can just load up your, get your screw in there, put your hammerhead on there, get it lined up, lay it in there, and then you'll tighten it down and twist your hammerhead. And these are 3mm. So you're just going to line this up. These are the screws used here are M5 by 8s. I'm using button heads. I think if you followed the bomb, you're going to have socket heads. I actually have M5 by 10, so I'm just putting a washer underneath it. Make sure it's fully in the corner and tighten these down. Thank you for the follow. Click on Tinto. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Whoops. So when you're done, it's going to look like this. You have a screw here, and your rod going straight up at the back. Now we're going to do the other side. Same thing. We're going to set our part in here, shoot our peanut around so that the hole's lined up. Then we'll grab our M5 by 8 socket or button head. All of the thing on the CAD is showing socket head cap screws. I'm using button head because, well, that's what I have, and that's what I was taking off the other printer, so no sense in going and swapping over to a different type of screw. I mean, I've got plenty of them, but tighten that in there. Now you've got your 2 vertical rods. And as you can see, each rod is setting on top of that foot. So even if it was a fully loose fit and your rod could just slap in and out, it'll be fine. So now that we have that, let me think real fast. We should have plenty of room to mess with the Z motor. We're going to go ahead and put the bottom deck panel on and Actually, we'll hold off on the deck panel for right now. We can add that on anytime. We just need to get these in before we can do the deck panel. And we need to have these in before we can put our bed in. So that's why we haven't even started on our bed. I'm going to set this aside while you're taking your 10 seconds. Now, I will say on my bed, I did a mod on my Rook 2020 Mark I, and I did the one-piece bed because, well, I could, right? So I had the ability to do a one-piece bed. I probably could have printed these if I looked for and really validated the files to make sure that there wasn't any changes in the bed between the two. I don't think there are. I'm going to put support constraints just for these. Oh well. I'm going to set this upside down. So majority of the flat surface are sitting down here, and you'll have these recessed pockets, right? These are where your bed screws are going to sit at. Okay, you finish the feet. We're going to start off with these two back pieces. And you're going to notice on one side you have a hole for a M3 nut. So we're going to need a M3 nut. It does not need to be a lock nut. I'm not even sure if they called out for a lock nut in the CAD. See if I can find it. Yeah, just a standard M3 nut. And it's a M3 by 20 screw. So a standard M3 nut. And it gets placed in the hole on the one side. You'll notice that there's a hole there for an M3. Line it up, press it in. Use a pair of tweezers or something to push it down in there. Need to. And then on the other side, we're going to use an M3 by 20. So we need an M3 by 20. Probably going to use 3 of those because we'll have 3 different places that we put this bed together. So on the, if you're looking, so here's your base, right? Here's your recessed holes that this is where the adjustment knobs are going to be. This side has a standard hole. This side has the cutout for an M3 nut. So if you're looking at it like this, it's the right side that has the spot for the M3 nut. Left side's where we're going to be putting in our M3 by 20 screw. Remind me, I just dropped a nut somewhere down there, so just get your M3 nut dropped in there. You'll take one of your M3 by 20 socket heads cap screws, slide it in there. This is where you're going to need a either a ball-end driver or a Allen key that you can work with. I'm going to grab my ball-end driver and you're just going to screw this together. And you'll pull that M3 nut in there tightly. This is where I want to make sure that I'm down, everything's flat, everything's lined up, front to back. You'll tighten that up. Now we have standard holes on here for another set of M3s, right? So these holes right here, one here, one here. We're going to take our M3s, which means the front nose piece is the piece that has the spot for the M3 nuts. So we need 2 M3 nuts on the back side here. You get those lined up and pressed in. Hang it. 2 M3 nuts down. Zombie, if you're here, how many M3 nuts did you drop on the floor doing your Rook build? Just asking for a friend. Okay? And once again, make sure you have it lined up. We have it on the top is on the bench, so our Rook symbols will be upside down. And also the 3 knob points are going to be recessed or countersunk. Then we're going to come in here with our M3 by 20 nuts or bolts again. Be careful, you don't want to crack these parts. You just want to snug these up. Not going to be force on these and stuff like that or anything. There we are. We now have our bed. Okay. Might need to clean these up just a little bit. I don't know. One of mine came out pretty good. The other 2 are a little rough. Just clean that up with a hobby knife. 18 should work fine. 18 should be fine. And that's where I think I've got to go through and look. I think there's going to probably be several inconsistencies based on what you've been telling me from the CAD and the BOM. So definitely let's keep track of those, because I'd like to give that feedback to Canrog and definitely back to KB3D, because like I said, he had mentioned possibly wanting to make a kit for this for the 2020s, because I think LDO's coming out with an actual like 3D printed Rook, not a 2020 Rook kit. You only have 3 M3 by 20s. This is where they're called out, at least in the CAD that I'm looking at right here. Okay. Yep, I'll call that wrong. Yeah, so I'm well, maybe. Let me rethink that. Let me rethink that. Well, I'll be darned. For whatever reason, I was looking at these and I thought these clamps for our Element LUU bearings were M3s. They are M3s on my other build, but this is telling me that we're going to use M5s and we're threading directly into the plastic. So yeah, so for connecting your 3 parts of your triangular bed frame, it's M3 nut and M3 by 20s. So if you got M3 by 20s, use those 3 M3 by 20s to clamp your bed frame together. Okay? That's what you should be left with. Once again, the top surface is pretty much all smooth. You have recessed like channels there. Then the back side is where you've got the 3 recessed circular areas for the tensioning knobs, 3 bed screws. Okay? So yeah, 25s would just be long. I don't see why they wouldn't work. And if you have them, anytime we're doing a clamping force like this, if you're going to be using M3 by 25s, they're going to be extra long. If you have some M3 washers, throw an M3 washer underneath the head of that bolt. I just like to do that whenever there's like a clamping force being applied with an M3. It just adds a little bit more surface area. Okay. Yeah, there should have been, like I said, if the bomb is right, then it should have had some M3 by 20s in it. So I need to really go back and I'll say revalidate a lot of the bomb stuff because honestly, I took it on faith that the bomb was correct. So I sent the bomb over to Chris and basically said, here are the options we're using. So give us these options. Beyond that, I didn't validate like screw type, screw sizes, screw numbers. So that I will say is a bad on my part. Hopefully you're not having to go out and buy a whole bunch of craziness to fill out things. But like I said, if you are, please keep the receipt and let me know and I will reimburse you. Okay. So we've got our basic bed frame together. We're going to add our Element UU bearings. So we're going to take these and just stick them down in those rear holes. And you're going to be looking for about the same amount of gap on each side. You can eyeball it. You don't have to be 100%. Just kind of eyeball it. And then we're going to take a calls for M5 by 25. And it figures I don't have any M5 by 25 button heads. I do have some M5 by 20s, which should be perfectly fine for my use case. There's plenty of thread engagement there for an M5 by 20. So if you don't have an M5 by 25, an M5 by 20 will work just as well. What we're going to do is just get these tightened into the plastic, but don't really put a clamping force. Okay? Meaning just get the head of your screw up against the plastic, but don't start clamping. Okay, so there's our element U bearings, about equidistant, top to bottom. And then these M5 by 25 screws that we put in are down just to where they're touching this plastic. We haven't applied any pressure on this tension lever just yet. We don't want to. Okay? Let's grab our printer. Back to the main screen here. So we're going to grab our printer. We're going to line up our element UU bearings on our rods. We're going to push our bed down. We want to try and keep it level as we push it down on those rods. We're going to bring it all the way down to the bottom. Okay? And if any grease popped out when you did that, just no worries. Grab a paper towel, wipe that excess off the top and the rail. You're not going to need it. There's no sense in lubricating your rods because there's rubber wipers on the end of your bearings. It's not going past the rubber wipers. It's going to keep moving up and down on the rods. So if you're ever using a linear rod system, a Prusa, or anything like that, and you start seeing a ring around the rod of a buildup of grease, don't even think twice about it. Grab a paper towel, reach in there, and wipe that off. It's never going back inside the bearing. Okay, so we've got our bed sitting in there. Now what we can do is put on our top rod pieces, and we're going to need to have our T-nuts in here on each side. If we already had them preloaded, great. I didn't preload mine. I'm going to see if I can get some preloaded. If not, I'll have to go over and dig for some M5, some M5 hammer nuts. Weirdly enough, I find like one of the channels, these pop in real easy. Another channel of the same extrusion, it might not. I don't know why. Rather annoying. no worries. Let me know when you're ready, tugboat. Because what we're going to do now is we're just going to take these and we're going to fit them on top of those rods. And the rods don't have to come all the way up. All we're going to be doing is lining these up so that we can get these screwed in. Bulls. Oh, thanks, Pez Liz. You're telling me I need more coffee while I'm taking a short break. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, folks, we've got a few things that we need to work on for the coming back from Midwest Rep Rap Festival. We had a couple of what feet did you? I went into the CAD and exported the feet out of the CAD and printed them in TPU. Just standard bamboo strength settings. Yep. Now I was trying to use the standard feet from the Fabrico Rook kit, and they weren't tall enough. And the bomb calls for like the standard Voron size, I believe it is, and they're not tall enough. So you'd have to print out a spacer, which is funny because there's no STL for a foot spacer in the files. And so that was an issue. And I think Tugboat has ordered some black TPU, but right now their feet are going to be white. I think that's the TPU color they had. So yeah, that's kind of I'll say a swing and a miss again, if you ask me. So I'm going to try and provide some comments and feedback back to CanRog to get some of those squared away. Okay. So now, just like before, we're going to go ahead and you may have to, and the reason we haven't tightened these yet is you're going to have to push these kind of over some to get them lined up with the with your you get them lined up in the corner. There we go. That's the language I was going to use. So you're just going to get these lined up, tighten these in. You're loading T-nuts? Okay. So now that we have the top and the bottom corner pieces in, we should be able to take our bed and move it up and down, and it should move pretty freely, right? And we haven't provided any clamping force yet on our bearings, and we're going to do that now. We don't want to crank down on it because then we'll stop movement of our bearings. We just want to apply a little bit of tension. Because what we're trying to do is the Element UU bearings are designed to work under where they're in a part that's providing a compressive force. Okay? And so it's either going to be a really tight fit when you press them in, or like in this case, we have a clamping force that we're applying with these screws. And that's sliding or running on those bearings very nicely. So okay. So that's where we're at, and our bed part is now in good. Meanwhile, let me just wanted to show off a little bit. So this part that I printed for a coworker, there was a problem with his CAD drawing, so I'm reprinting it for him. But this is a ski pylon, right? So he's going to drill some mounting holes in here and mount this to the back edge of a boat, like a cross member on a boat. And a 2 1/8 inch pipe will go down through this into a metal sleeve on the bottom. And this is just going to prevent it from flapping. But this is a ski rope pylon, so that metal bar will go up, sit up above the motor so that the ropes don't get caught up on the tops of the motors as people are skiing. But this is being printed in PA612 carbon fiber. This is Polymaker PA612 carbon fiber. I don't know why, I just wanted to show that off. This is printing beautifully on a standard bamboo PA6CF profile. It's hotter than what Polymaker says you have. It's hotter than the normal range that Polymaker says you need to print it on, especially for the bed. Doing 100C and 275, and I think it can print on like a 50C bed at 240. But it comes out beautifully. And what will happen is once this is done, I'm going to put it on some parchment paper in the oven and run the oven at 170C for 6 hours. And that's going to help anneal the molecules in the part and line up the molecules a little bit better, and we'll make it even tougher. So yeah, just kind of wanted to show that off. So now that we've got our bed on, right, we can work on the Z-axis and all that stuff. We'll do that in a little bit. What I want to start working on is the top now, right? You print it at 300C. Yeah, it doesn't need to. I think it can print down at like 260, 270. But yeah, it's printing. It prints fine. I do notice in these parts, and once again, everything about this printer is designed to be printed in PLA, right? I printed everything in ABS. It's going to be more robust. It's going to stand up in the vehicle. Your use case, yep, not a problem. Your use case is taking the printer to schools, right? So it's going to be in a car. It's going to be out there probably in the sun at some point. Cars are going to get hot. I wanted to make sure it was robust, so we printed all the parts in ABS. So you may see things like this on the bed where as we clamp this down, it kind of pulled this back side of the bed apart a little bit. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. It's not, that's not going to affect anything in the mechanics of the print at all. So no worries there. Okay. Because that is just a gap. In fact, if I had printed this as the single bed, you know, it definitely obviously wouldn't pull apart there. But it's just because of this, you know what I'm saying. It's aesthetic. Don't worry about it. Now, what I am going to want to do is we're going to start putting some things on the top and mounting our 4 corner pieces. So we'll need our motor mounts and our front idler uprights. And you may need to clean your M3 holes up some for the motors. My holes aren't too bad. M3 holes have just a slight bit where it's some sacrificial layers there. Push your M2.5 through it. And I do like that, you know, these are going to be hard, I'll say hard mount points for the motors. Like in the past, we've used the motors as tensioning, right? So you'd have to pull the motor back. So your motor was always in these printed slots, and it could always kind of loosen up some. So what we're going to need here is we're going to need one T-nut here, one on the back, and 2 at the top. So grab a few more of your T-nuts. So one on the side vertical, on the rear vertical. Then we'll need 2 at the top. Now we're not going to put anything in the 2 at the top right now. I don't think. I think those will get idlers. Nope, they don't. Yeah, so all 4 of these, one on the side, one on the back, and then 2 on the top, they're going to take our M5 by 8s. Once again, I'm using M5 by 10 button heads, so I'll throw a washer underneath them. just try and make sure that you're kind of pressed down and in when you're doing this to make sure that everything lines up properly. You only have 4 T-nuts left and haven't dropped any. Kids these days, perfectionists. So what we're working on right now is we're installing the rear motor mounts. So on the rear motor mounts, you're going to need one on the outer side upright, one on the back of the upright, and then 2 on the top. And we'll need that on both sides. So it's just kind of a rinse and repeat on the second side. So 1 on the back, 1 on the outer edge, and then 2 on the top of the rear cross member. And we'll just use our part to get these lined up. I'm like a little girl when I realized I put the pen facing the wrong direction. You put your bed on upside down? Well, luckily at this point, it's just a couple of screws, so it's not a huge deal just yet. And that's sort of one of the reasons why I always put the my actual bed on kind of last, is it lets me get everything lined up and lets me work on the printer without having to deal with the added weight either. This is all we're doing. Let me go big screen again. So we're putting our motor mounts on. So I need 2 at the top edge, 1 at the back, 1 at the side. And on your top, your holes on your T-nuts are facing the cut part of the upright. And then on the back and the side, the holes are on the downside. That way you can mount everything up and you don't have anything showing. So for aesthetics. And like I said, you should be able to just undo the corner pieces, pop them off, lift your bed off, flip it over, put the bed back on. But once again, the U-shaped channels should be facing up because that's where your springs are going to go in, and it allows you a little bit of front to back alignment. And then the like round indentations in these spots are going to be where the knobs are at. The bottom with the logo, we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if you need to pull some out and use them otherwhere or elsewhere, or if you want to use your hammerhead T-nuts, go ahead and use your hammerhead T-nuts. I mean, I have a plethora just because I built enough kits. One, that I've got plenty of LDO extras, and then two, oh, okay. Yeah, I buy these in bulk, normally off of Amazon. Most of the time you can get them next day. They'll have some on Sunday. Okay. Well, if you can reallocate the ones from the bottom up here at the top, great. If you can't get them out, no worries. I do plan on at least getting the motors in the mount today. Yeah, my plan was to get the tensioners put on, and then we would mount those. And the tensioners, we're going to need T-nuts for the tensioners as well. So we're going to need 4 on the tensioner for the front tensioners. 1 on this side, and the other on the inside edge. And you need to verify your tensioners. You're going to have 2 different ones. See that these are at different heights, the holes. So we really need to look at our front piece here to figure out which side our tensioners. So looking at it from the back where our motors are, the taller one, the one where the tensioner is going to be higher, is going to be on this side front, right? And the lower one, which is also, the other good side to look at it is they're offset to, there's an offset in them. The outer edge, where it's right up against the outer edge, that's the side that it goes on. So that gives you an idea of where you're going to put your front idlers. Okay? So we'll need to get these laid in there. And hopefully, nope. We're going to have to put the top rail ones in such way that they are, the holes are facing the front edge. Hopefully I just didn't lock that in there. That'll suck. So the top, the hole needs to be towards the front. Otherwise, we don't have enough room. We'll bottom out the T-nut here before we line up the hole. We'll have to do like that. On the upright, we should have plenty where we can put the hole facing down, and that will hide the rest of the T-nut. We'll get that in line and pull it down. I just try and place the T-nuts in such a way that we're going to hide the T-nut from view as much as possible. So once again, outer top and the vertical here, and whoops, same thing on the inside. Of course, moving it down so that we can push them in. So once again, the offset side to side goes to the outside, so this will be on this edge. So lower in the part and to the outside edge is the way we're going to line these up. And we'll just use our tweezers to move our nuts back up into place. No comments from the peanut gallery on that. And surprisingly enough, made that part well enough so that when you get that nut lined up, it is not visible. So looking at it from the side, the nut's lined up. You don't see the nut unless you're kind of looking at it at an obtuse angle. And once again, these will be the M5x8s, which is the standard assembly. I'm using M5x10 button heads with a washer underneath it because that's what I have. I want to make sure that it's fully pushed forward and seated. So does it feel like that may have this one feels like it's actually bottoming out, so I might have to put a couple of washers on it. Still feels like it bottomed out. I may have to actually go out and buy some M5x8s. You know, I have a few here, so let me go ahead and use those. I have to see if I have more of them, though. Once again, don't try and ugga-dugga these down to the point where you start hearing parts creaking. Okay, sounds good. I'm just putting the uprights in, and we'll try and wait for you. And I might go ahead and look to see if I have any more M5x8s, and if so, then I'll actually start swapping my 10s out for 8s. Ugh. Really, how far back? He didn't. Yeah. How's it going tonight, Da Vinci? Hope all is well. We have any more on here? Don't think that I do. Got a few of the black ones. Let me just see what my stores over here have. Yep, standard boron stuff's going to be M5 by 10. I have some M5 by 8, but it's all black socket head. Bunch of these. I don't know. Hey, that might come in handy. And I'll means I might want to transition stuff over to black. It's a good thing I got a bunch of black and silver material or screws. So at least anything that's going to be visible, I will cut over to M5 by 8 black. Whatchamacallit, socket head cap screws. Anything else is needed, all with the M5 by 10s. M5 by 8s is basically, if it's visible, I'll try and keep it uniform as much as possible. What I'm getting at. I'll have to order some more myself. So. Huh. Failed to put the screw in there to begin with. Hey, Nick, how's it going, my friend? Welcome on in. We are working on a Rook 2020 Mark II build that we're doing with our friends over at Tugboat 3D Printing. They were at Rocky Mountain Rep Festival, and I had promised them my salad fork had I not traded it by the end of the show. Well, I traded it by the end of the show. So then I felt bad. So KB3D Chris and I talked to them, and we came to the conclusion that for their use case, a Rook 2020 would be a better choice anyhow. So I printed all the parts, sent it over to them, and we are in the process of doing simultaneous build. I'm building mine here. He's building his over in Colorado, is where they're based out of. And we're having some issues. So I given Chris the bomb and said, okay, here's the bomb off the website. So let's get, pull this together. And what we're finding is either KB3D was really out there for some reason, I highly doubt, or the bomb is not 100% right. So we're going to make notes. We're going to figure out what is truly needed and stuff like that, and then we will we'll go through and provide some updates to CanRog. Well, and a couple of things that we've found is like the feet, there's feet listed in the BOM. The only way the feet listed in the BOM will work is if you print out spacers, and there is no spacers listed in the STLs, right? So what we're having to do is I looked at the CAD and exported the feet that are listed in the CAD, and I printed them out in TPU and sent the file over to Tugboat so they could also print it out in TPU. Now they only have white TPU at the moment, so they're going to have to, not going to have to, but I believe they had said that they were going to go ahead and reprint in black when their black TPU comes in. But yeah, so we're finding some things like that. Not necessarily insurmountable, but it's more like, okay, we're going to have some more stuff that they're going to need to get. They've been buying some stuff on the side, and I've asked them to provide me, a list of everything that they bought on the side so I can reimburse them for it. So the fact that I am switching these over to this black hardware is perfectly fine because it goes well with our accents here. Oh yeah, yeah. You and Chris have big beef from like 200 years ago? And folks, by the way, that merch store link, I believe is good for another couple of weeks. I believe it's July 17th when Stream Elements officially closes down their stores. So if you want some merch or would like to get some merch, please get it now while you can. If not, it'll take a little bit of time for me to get the Fourth Wall store up and running. Please just bear with me. Got the origin of Chris's broken pecker. No, Chris actually broke his pecker laser etching the logos into my into the metal back plates for my black box tool heads. That's the history of where Chris broke his pecker. Yep. So there's a couple of the plates on my tool head where the laser etching is a little light because it was actively dying as he was trying to do it. And it's his own fault because trying to laser etch metal, one, is a little rough, and two, it wasn't the recommended use case for the Laser Pecker 4. So yeah, everything on the top I have swapped out with the with my black oxide M5 by 8 button head cap screws, so I'm down to like 5. So yeah, I'm gonna have to acquire a bunch. So Chris broke your toenail. I'm not even sure what to say about that. Okay, we're gonna need some M5 by 30s. Do I have M5 by 30s? 5 by 40s. I have M5 by 30s, but they're not socket head, they're button heads. Do I have M5 by 30s over here? That be the question. If I do I have them in the black oxide? Then that would be negative. Got 35, 40. So definitely not there. We look in one other location just to see if I have them, and if not, use some button heads, and we'll swap those out after an Amazon order. Just because I would like to try and keep material appropriate. Okay, so now I have 7 T-nuts. Woohoo! In the Civil War. Uh-oh. Okay, so what we're going to be working on next, Tugboat, is adding in our rollers here. So I've got my printer kind of laid out in this orientation here, where I'm looking at it from the right side of the printer. Okay, rear motors are to my right, idlers are to my left, and the rear two holes here, the M5 holes over here, are double stack bearings, right? So we have a M5 by 30 and a double stack of bearings. So what I'm going to do is grab one of my previous double stacks right here, and I'll take it apart as I put it on, should be an M5 by 30 button head. That is an M5 by 30 button head. What are these? They're currently on M5 by 30 socket heads. Really want to leave them on these. But it's an M5 by 30 socket head. The way this works is you're going to put on a M5, we're going to call them a spacer or a washer or a shim. So be like an M5 shim, one of your 695 flange bearings, the flange facing the socket head. Another bearing facing the opposite way to make a roller. And then another shim. That is one bearing stack. Need two of them, so we're going to do another shim. Add that second shim. You want to go when you want. You'll add the second shim. Then another flange bearing with the flange facing to that shim. Flange bearing facing the opposite way. And another shim. That would be a double stack. And an M5 by 30 screw. Yeah, oh, you're still trying to get the motor mounts on? Okay. Okay. I'm just putting these bearing stacks on. The two outermost rear ones are the same. They're double stacks. And I will tell you, at least on mine, these M5 holes are pretty tight. You are threading your parts or your screws in as you're doing this, and it's pretty tight. Like if you had an M5 tap and felt the need and desire to run it through there, I think that would work. What we're going to have here is the back rear, the outer edge two back rear ones here are both double stacks, and they're going on with M530s. So because I pulled this off of another working printer, I have my stacks kind of already built. Front ones will be a little bit different. When you're doing this, just go slow. If you want to tap them, like I said, they should definitely be tappable. If you wanted to tap threads in these parts, just be careful as you screw it in, because you are cutting threads the whole way. And all you want to do is tighten it down so you don't have any up or down play in your bearings. You don't want to cinch it down. You just don't want any vertical play in your bearings. Still rotate and spin. And now, while I'm going to give you a second to catch up, I'm going to jump on my favorite site. That would be Amazon. And order some M5 by 8. And look at that. I can get some delivered tomorrow. And what were their size? M5 by 30. Because I can't like have different color screws, right? We got to have all the right screws. So M5 by 30. Egg cap. Button. Okay. While you're doing some other stuff, I'm going to hold off replacing any of the screws down at the bottom, like these down here, for now. Actually, I think I have some black M5 by 8 button heads. And the button heads might actually be better for these lower mounts, simply because that other, the bottom plate's going to lay in there. I don't know how much room we have. Probably enough room for socket heads, but I am going to put the button heads there. I'll continue on swapping these out for now. Hey, Timor, how's it going? Is it you're working on a set of 20 low-cost filament dryer storage run boxes, 4-liter, 200-watt, temp controlled at 70C, 24-volt DC, half pint of desiccant, auto shut down at 10% humidity for $100 a box. You're making and selling those, or you're making them and overall cost is about $10 per? Once again, for those of you that were at Rocky Mountain, you would have saw the E-Dry filament dryer that Chris is doing another group buy on. That group buy is closing soon. I'm not sure, Chris too, if you're still here, did he extend that any? Because I know he still hadn't sent an email communication out. It was just posted on Discord. But the black stack design is going to have a spot for that E-dryer to sit underneath it, so that you can go right out of the E-dryer and right into your black box. And I believe it's supposed to have a drawer or two on it as well, or provisions for a drawer or two that would enable enable you to words in English. It will enable you to set up your you'd have storage options for your tools and stuff like that. Spare hot ends, spare any type of tooling. English is hard, apparently, at this point of the day. Kind of trying to roughly get these in place. Get them lined up better once we go to put this on. I mean, we can put this on. I don't need, this is definitely an under the deck thing. So if we really wanted to, we can go ahead and put this on. Mix and match your screws, because this is under deck. It's not going to be visible, not going to be showable to the masses. Right, so when this is at a show, it's not going to be visible. I'm not going to put all of these in. I'm just going to put one or two in just to kind of get the feel and vibe. Because once again, I do have appropriate hardware now in my box to order. Making them for you with a $10 per cost. That's nice. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Somewhat what I'm doing here is just getting these put on so that I can show you what the bottom plate will look like on this. Might need a thumbnail streams. In tugboat, just be aware that this may have, I'll say, shrunk a little bit. So this might be, there might be a tiny bit of a gap there. So don't crank all of these down or you might split your part. And if there is a little bit of a gap, I would say pull everything into the front and leave that gap towards the back. It'll be less noticeable back there. There we go. Nice KB3D logo there. And like I said, I'm ordering a bunch of screws right now so that I can, I'll swap these off stream. Once again, this will be a, say a showpiece that will be going on the KB3D booth. Showpiece in a loose term. Replace the one I always have over there. Okay, so you don't have the ones to put these in. Gotcha. Do you have your washers and bearings so that we can start putting in our bearing stacks? Once again, both of the rear corners are double stacks of bearings. So you're going to take your screw and way too long, but you'll hold it at the head. It's going to be an M5 shim washer, whatever you got. Flange bearing with the flange against the washer. Flange bearing with the flange at the top. Spacer, spacer, flange bearing, spacer. That will be your double stack. Then you're going to take the whole thing and screw it in the back two corners. Once again, I'll give you a close-up of what one of those bearing stacks looks like. So between the two roller bearing sets, you're going to have two spacers. Okay. No worries. Is it okay to put the logo thing in now? The deck panel, you can put the deck panel in now if you would like or not. It may be, I don't know, we should have plenty of access even with this here to do the belting and everything. So that's what I was afraid of, but looking at this, we should have plenty of access to do everything we need right here, even with this bottom plate in. I will say eventually we're going to have to put some heat press inserts in here to mount our electronics. So you may want to hold off there so you can put these in easier off the printer. So I should have sent you two of these, right? One's got the Rook logo on it, and one's got just an X. Right? These are to mount Raspberry Pis. The difference is one of them now at the 4-way, right? Which means it's going to be all the way at the front or a back. So let me kind of scoot some things around here so I can show you what I'm talking about. So the Rook one, you have the standoffs here that your Raspberry Pi would go on. But it either has to mount to this front or this side or this side. And if you notice going like this, it's going to be kind of a tight fit here. And your USB and stuff like that will go out this. Means your GPIO pins would be on this. X plate, right? The 4 little standoffs are still going to be for your Raspberry Pi, but you see that the holes rather being on the outside or on the inside. And that lines up with these 2 center rows. And it would mount it more centrally. This is the one that I'm going to use. Okay. Which means we would need heat set inserts. Oh. Hola. Which means we'll need heat set inserts in the, we need heat set inserts here, 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 and here. And then these, just these 4. And we'll plan on using this X plate versus the Rook logo. That makes sense? So go ahead and wait and mount this later off stream. But before you mount it, go ahead and put your heat set inserts in the 2 middle ones. And then this side. This will be for the SKR Mini. right? So this will mount right here. And then this bracket will go there and we'll mount a Raspberry Pi. We'll mount our Raspberry Pi, do it like that. Okay. And then what I've got right here is a cable to talk UART. So I can talk you through how to build one of these. And it's DuPont to DuPont. So we've got power, ground, and then yellow and the blue will be swap positions between the two edges. We'll talk about doing this, right? And what we do is this goes on the TFT screen and we're pulling power, ground, and the transmit receive. And it comes over here onto our Raspberry Pi just like that. So we'll power the Pi that way. But I'll show you how to build that, not a worries, okay? We'll do that off stream, or maybe we'll do that on stream. Or if you want to, we can do that off stream and we can do it like a Discord chat or something like that. But I'll show you how to build that. Because in fact, I'll want you to pull an extra 5 volt from somewhere. So we'll do that as well. So sound good? Hey, Free Heathen, how's it going? Thank you for the raid with 14 viewers. Hey, Cruising Girl, how's it going? We are in the process of building our Rook 2020 Mark IIs. We've hit some snags along the way. We've been having to go and look at the CAD, but welcome on in, everybody. And getting the Free Heathen with the UU. I know that is now Bexy Beans. So hi, Bexy Beans. Welcome on in. So for those of you that are just joining that may not know, my name is Digital Dragon. I am a 3D printing variety streamer here on Twitch. You see a lot of printers behind us. I do things from unboxing, things like our bamboos. I didn't actually unbox on stream, but you get my point. Is we unbox things like that, or the Prusa Mark IV down here. To doing mods like building the MMU3 and adding our MMU3 down here to our Prusa Mark IV so we could do color prints. To pull up 3D printer builds like the Voron 2.4, Voron Trident, the other Voron 2.4 down here in the corner, the VZ-Bot, to prototyping, such as the, I'll get it right here in a minute, the 0G Mercury 1, which was built under a closed beta. Fortunately, it's still under a closed beta, and this has been to Murph twice. So really need to see about getting this out of closed beta for people. So what we've been doing on stream now is we've had a Rook 2020 Mark I, right? That we've been taking to shows. This is Orange Dragon, and he prints very well. It goes to shows, and it tends to go to KB3D Chris's channel or table, the KB3D booth, and they're very well versed on taking filament, loading filament, and then just using the screen to push buttons and start printing things out on it. The only drawback is this is not in the right color or shade of orange. So what we did was I had offered a printer up to the Tugboat 3D printing group out at Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest. They are a group of teenagers that have created a 501c3, which is a nonprofit organization. And one of their goals is to go into other schools, elementary schools, middle schools, and such, and teach them about the principles of 3D design and 3D printing. So at Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival, I had offered them up a salad fork, which is one of the printers that I've built on my channel. And the goal was to give them a printer that they can go and do their stuff with. And what I had said was, I will bring this to you at the end of Sunday. Yep, that's them. Feel free to put your link out there, Tugboat, by the way. I think you might be able to do like a Bang Tugboat. I can't remember if I created. But I had promised to bring that over to them at the end of the show if I had not had another offer made. Well, I had another offer made. And after that was done, I kind of felt bad. And I went back and said, I want to make this right. I want to give you a 3D printer. So my first thought was probably a Voron V0, right? So what I did was I grabbed Chris and we walked over and chatted with them. And in hearing about their goals and what they were planning on doing, we realized that they needed something small and portable, right? They've got a couple of Ender 3s. They've got a A1 Mini, right? But an A1 Mini, I think it was an A1 Mini, wasn't it? An A1 Mini with an AMS, it's still cumbersome to get around, right? So what we did was we brought them over to KB3D's table and we showed them the Rook 2020. And we realized that that is perfect for a couple of reasons. One, it's self-contained, right? You need a spool holder and a spool of filament and a power cord and the printer. And it's portable, right? You can pick it up and carry it around really easily. Boom, done. Move it around. I have taken my Rook Mark 1s, I had 2 of them, and the Rook 2020 to several shows over the last 2 years. They're very easy, very portable, real easy to put in the back seat and roll, in the back floorboard and roll. So what we decided was we're gonna get them everything they need to do a Rook 2020 Mark II build. So I hand cut the frames because at Rocky Mountain, I got a set of 50 500 millimeter 2020 extrusions. So I hand cut these, drilled and tapped them myself, and sent them out there along with the bomb hot end and extruders, which we got off AliExpress. So once again, per the bomb, it's basically a bamboo clone hot end. And literally it's a hick top bamboo clone hot end. We'll have to put it together. Whoa. We'll have to put it together, but, you know, whoops. Let me switch screens here and go grab that piece before I forget about it. So it's a cloned bamboo hot end, right, from hick top. So 0.4 nozzle hot end with, it'll be thermistor. So we might have to redo some of the wiring because, of course, this isn't going on a bamboo. But we'll have to do some crimping. So we'll learn all about crimping and stuff on this stream as well. And then this is an HGX extruder. So basically, it's the Bondtech LGX, and I would say almost like a Sherpa style looking. Right? Um, Now, one thing that I will say is it's not this back bearing, but I think it's one of the front bearings on the LGX gears. I have to double check. Been really, really well. But Panrog had an issue with like these little bearings here going bad. So um, if that happens, it's an easy fix. These are easy to tear apart. The harder part is just pressing that bearing out and then pressing a new one in. But if I'll get you some of these bearings from KB3D just in case they go bad and you have to. But no big deal. Hey, Jedi Spidey, welcome in. Yes, folks. Thank you, Tugboat, for mentioning that. The Raiders, I still see a few of you. You show up with a highlighted box around you. On the bottom left, under the window, you'll see the dragon, digital dragon icon. Click that twice, and that brings you fully in the stream and adds you to my count. Helps with the numbers and stuff. But we'll be using these critters, and they're AliExpress specials. They're nothing major. On mine, I'm currently running an Orbiter 2, which I love the Orbiter 2 for two reasons. There's a button. On an Orbiter 2, you load filament and you can, well, let me rephrase that. I have an Orbiter 2 with a filament runout sensor. When you add that sensor, as soon as the filament goes in, it triggers and it starts a heat up and load sequence. When you want to unload it, say at the end of a show, you push a button on it and it heats it up and unloads and goes through a macro. Really cool. Those are really nice to have. But we're going to go ahead and we're following the bomb. So I sent these over to them as well. The other thing that we're going to do is we will add a display to the front of this. The nice thing about adding a display to the front of this is it makes it fully portable, right? So once again, I bring this to a show. I don't need Wi-Fi. I don't need a laptop. I don't need to interface with it other than having files preloaded on it. And then we just do everything here. We can say print, select the file, and go. And that's what we did at the show. So I had my router at the show. I did see this. It did come up on the router. But I didn't need to have a router. And KB3D loaded filament and went over here, clicked a couple of buttons, and it started printing out chameleons, which kids love them. They love chameleons. And I think it was the V0, Chris 2 is here. I think it was the V0. They were doing like little like Humpty Dumpties. And they couldn't keep those on the table either. Yes, Jedi Spidey. So I cut 2 frames. I printed all the parts for mine. And mine were all printed in Fusion Filaments. What is it? Electric Pineapple. So all of these are electric pineapple. And the dark color is nanotube gray. And then I printed another set for Tugboat 3D. And it's in Fusion Filaments ABS. I think it's V1.5. They have 2 different types of ABS, 1.5 and 2.0. The amount of little like sparkle fleck that's in them. And I believe it was 1.5. And it's electrolytic deuterium, which is a blue. That is the closest thing to their logo. And once again, the nanotube gray. And the bottom plate here, I have KB3D's logo on it. On theirs, I recreated their logo. So their bottom plate has their logo with Tugboat 3D printing on it. So it's branded for them. So every time they take it into a show, it's there. And it's really neat. I posted pictures on it. I think I posted them on Discord. I know I've sent them on Twitch, on Twitter. I'll make sure that they're posted on Discord as well. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We've been building it up. We're running into some issues where the type of screw and the lengths and stuff, the quantities may be off between the BOM and what we're seeing in CAD. So I do have, excuse me, I do have the CAD up here. Like for one thing, they called out what is in essence the standard, I think, Voron feet, right? I think it's 19 millimeters by 33 millimeters. 33 millimeters in diameter, 19 millimeters tall. The problem is when you put those on, this Z mount here sits lower than the rest. So if you weren't running the geared Z, you might be okay. Actually, you won't because of the Z motor. So that will not fit. And what we found is when I flip this over, you'll see these feet here. Let me see if I can get the right angle. Okay. So it looks like there's the feet and then there's this spacer box. Well, if I click on that, I should be able to right click and just export that body, and then they can print a new spacer. What I've done and what I suggested they do, because I know they can print TPU, is if I double click on the whole body, it comes up as one full body. I exported that, and today I printed out 4 feet all in TPU. So this is a full foot in TPU under standard strength profile for Bamboo Labs. And I suggested that the guys go ahead and print theirs out as well in the full feet. And I think they're doing it in white TPU right now because that's what they have. They have some black on order. So we'll go ahead and we'll get them their feet. So yeah, that gives us the ground clearance to clear the motor as well as the geared drive. So we've decided to do the geared drive because that will keep the bed from falling down at the end of it. And quite honestly, what I did on mine, because I've got my Z end stop down here, is I bring my bed all the way down to like 5 millimeters from max. And then when the motor cuts off, it just drops like that. And it's not doing like a dramatic drop from here all the way down. Also, another issue is you have zero experience building. Well, yeah, that too. That too. He has zero experience building printers, but this is a learning experience, right? And Ender 3s, you can literally get experience building Ender 3s and then tearing them apart and upgrading them. In fact, you guys swapped out the entire hot end at Rocky Mountain, or one of you did, with the oh no, because I have one here. So I believe DB3D Dan got them one of the NG extruders. So yeah. Yeah. They got one of these to add in. And this is the next gen, or the Micro Swiss NG extruder. I believe, did you get the Revo one? So this is basically a drop-in replacement for an Ender 3. You literally take off the bracket, reattach the wheels to this, and this is a drop-in replacement. I thought you got this. You might not have gotten the Revo version, but this is the Revo. Basically, it's a Revo CR version, which is a different heater core, not a different heater core, different thermistor. So if you get one of these that has a yellow wire on the thermistor, that is a CR heater core made to go on a Creality box. Drop-in replacement with no issue. You got the same one without the Revo? Okay. So yeah, the plan is to mount this on my, what am I thinking of? My TiVo Tarantula at some point when I go through and update that. So that's why I have one. Eventually I'll get around to doing that one. And I have a plate both for the Ender 3 and for an Ender 5. Because I have an Ender 5. So, you know, it's called options. You never know what I might put it on. But anyhow, we've been digressing here. And by the way, the Tiamat is here. Tiamat is not upstairs. For those of you that know and have been here for that, got the same one without the Revo. Okay. Tiamat is my black box tool changer, which is a 5-head tool changer. It is still sitting downstairs. Can I show you how to connect the bearing thing? Oh, on you're talking about on here. So let me switch you back to the full view so you can see things a little bit easier. So these are double stack bearings that we're using here. So it's literally, you'll start with a screw, and I'm going to just take this one apart. You'll start with a M5 by 30 screw. Right, you're going to hold it by the screw head. You're going to put a spacer. Could be a 5mm washer or a 5mm spacer / shim. These are like precision shims that I have. Not sure what you got from Chris. It might just be a standard 5mm washer. Then you're going to put on your flange bearing with the flange facing that shim and the head of the bolt. Then you're going to do another 695 flange bearing with the flange in the opposite way. That makes your roller. Then a spacer for the other shim. That makes up a bearing stack. And now you're going to need 2 of them for these back posts. So it's going to be another shim, flange bearing, shim. M5 by 25 will be fine. Perfectly fine. These are way the heck too long. Guarantee you. So once again, that's a single bearing stack. I've got another bearing stack, full bearing stack here. I'm just going to line this up and squirt it over there. Try to. Okay. So that's I believe that's an M525. Let me double check real fast. Yeah, so that's an M5 by 25. And that's still going to give you 5 or 6 millimeters of bite into these. So it's washer, bearing flange, or flange bearing, washer, washer, flange bearing, washer. So between the 2 bearings, there should be 2 washers between them. Crap. Just drop that, and the bearing's easy to find. The spacer, what? Where did the spacer go? It. Oh, found it. Good. All right. No, these do not have teeth. These are going to be smooth. The only place you should use the toothed idlers will be in our XY joint for the gantry. So these should be F695 bearings. They will either be in a plastic sleeve or they will be in a little package. Which one? They could be in a package like this, or they'll be in a sleeve where they're all stacked up. And these are F695 bearings. And together, when you place them with the flanges on the outside, that makes them the perfect size for a 6mm belt. Okay, you have? All right, nice. Sorry. So, and these are on the two, like rearmost outside M5 hole. Okay, that's going to be your double stack. You could have some M5 by 30s, but if you have M5 by 25s, it's going to be plenty enough for now. Or not for now, it's going to be plenty enough. So, hey, Poon Dog, welcome on in. Sorry I missed that. Meant to do the order so I got the bolts tomorrow so I could go ahead and swap a bunch of this stuff off stream, but I just hit go and now my bolts are coming on Saturday with the other thing in the order. C'est la vie. Yeah, so how are you doing, Poondog? Been a little while, haven't seen you. Of course, I didn't stream for a while there because of the Midwest Rep Rat Fest. And I've got to, I'm going to have to make a decision here somewhat soon. And the reason I say I'm going to have to make a decision is I need to decide if I'm going to try and bring stuff with me to try and stream from my son's house, or just say, hey guys, next week, not streaming Tuesday and Thursday because I'm going to be spending time. We were out at Midwest Rep Rat Festival, which is where he lives, Goshen Elkhart area, and I really didn't have time to spend with him during the. I feel bad, and I'm going to try and focus and spend some time with him. I'm going to drive back up there because I'm off next week. So I may just I'm let's just plan on me not streaming Tuesday and Thursday next. How about that? If I do, it might be like off of a phone or off. Just be a chat. I need to just focus. I need to find the M525s, but keep going. So one thing that I'll note is this other bearing stack here. So on the right side of the printer, you got the double stack in the back. The one in the front is a it's just a single stack. It calls for an M5 by 30 screw. So let's just look at that. So this would be an M5 by 30 screw here, right? Not too bad, but that's still almost a centimeter of screwing into plastic. Right? That's a bit. You're screwing for a bit. But to do, but to do this other one here with an M5 by 30 as well, if I like that's damn near 20 millimeters of screwing into plastic. Like, no, dog, I ain't doing that. For that one, you can definitely do like probably a 20 if you had it, or even probably a 16 if you had it. There's no need to do an M5 by 30 on this. That is crazy. Don't kill yourself trying to screw into plastic for ages. On the bomb, it doesn't call for an M5 by 30 good. So they did go ahead and at least change the bomb for the total length there, because like I said, that's an M5 by 16, and that's plenty of threads for this. You are not tensioning this, or you should not be tensioning this like you're trying to tension a VZ bot or a like an Annex Engineering K3. So I'm going to go ahead and use an M5 by 16 on this. I don't know what the bomb calls for on this front one that's short. And like I said, that M5 by 25 back here, perfectly fine, right? And as you're screwing it in and you start to get close, just grab that top bearing and try and raise up, right? You don't want to have any vertical play in that bearing. If you do, just do another small turn. Hey, Westery, because you don't want these bearing stacks to be able to rise up, because then it could vibrate and then it's going to gnaw on your belt some. You want them to be nice and it'll make some noise. You don't want you don't want play there, right? You don't want to cinch them down to where you stop all movement of the bearings. They should still spin freely, but you don't want any vertical play in the bearing stack. Okay? And on the right-hand side here, there is an M3 hole. So let me kind of rotate this around. Okay. So there's this M3 hole right here. Nothing goes in it. Okay. What they did is these two parts are a mirror of each other. Okay. So they did one, they mirrored it. This hole, the only reason it's there is because on the other side it needs to be there. Because what we're going to do is use that hole to hold this piece in. So this is a spacer that raises up this left side stack. So this one's low. This is going to be the high side. So it has this spacer here. Quite honestly, rather than do this whole piece, they could have just had you print, because even this has a little knob on it. They could have just had you print a cylinder spacer for right here and just use the cylinder spacer and gone down through it without having to have this piece here. I mean, it is what it is. They're using an M3 by 12. I don't know if he gave you an M3 by 12. That's an M3 by 8. M3 by 10 on a bad day. Hey, Westery, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. And quite honestly, I'm going to put that in there with an M3 by 8. Because there's no need to sit here and screw this down for, I mean, that's a pretty thin thread pitch. And if you're trying to thread in, a centimeter, dude, you're like feeling like you're driving that into China. Yes, this will be a VOD. I am gonna drop these out to YouTube as a VOD. There will be a VOD here on Twitch, and I will export this out to YouTube as well. There will be a playlist. And as I'm putting this on, I'm not going to tighten it all the way down. I want this to be freewheeling because I want to make sure that my M5 bolts lined up. So this one here, because it's a high stack, unfortunately you're going to have to use the M5 by 25 or the M5 by 30. So do I have M5 by 25 and a black one? That's a negative, right? Or that pattern is full. I'm going to need to wait on my black bolts to get here to swap this one out. But once again, this is a single. So it's a single stack as well. So washer, bearing, bearing. Going to go down through this spacer, and then we're going to screw it into the motor mount. Okay, so that's what we've got. We've got an M3 by 8 screw. It calls for a 12 in the CAD. 8's going to be perfectly fine. It's just locating and keeping this in a proper alignment. Then you'll have your bearing stack with M3 by 25, M5 by 25 or M5 by 30, whichever your bomb stack. And that is going to get it in line with this. So we're going to start getting this screwed down into the plastic. Once again, I'm going to keep lifting this bearing up and making sure that it is, that I get this tight to where I don't have that play in the bearing. Okay, so that's good. Bearing still spins, but there's no vertical play in it. Now I can come back in and lock down this M3 screw, and that'll hold everything in place. And we're threading into plastic, so no ugga-duggas here. Just get it till you can feel the change and tension. Done. Okay. So now that sets in all 4 of our bearing stacks. Once again, these 2 should be lined up, right? Heights of these 2 should be lined up. There's a bottom one here, 2 over here, and then the lower one on this side. So what that's going to tell me is my motor with the higher, whatchamacallit, pulley goes over here. My one with my lower pulley is going to go over here. So I'm going to take our CAD. Just going to rotate this back. And you're going to see on the left one over here, our motor is going to have our set screws at the bottom, right? So set screws at the bottom. Now these came off my other Rook. The height might be set right. It might not be. I'm not going to worry about the height just yet. We will get to that and make sure that it matches. And then on the other side, our pulley is going to be the reverse. So our set screws are going to be at the top and our belt path is going to be lower. And we'll, like I said, we'll set those heights. We'll adjust these as needed once we get them mounted. Now, on this, it shows in the CAD, when we mount these, that the wires come out of the back, right? So if I turn this around, it's showing the wires coming out the back. That means that your wire's going to plug in and you're going to have to bring it straight down. What I will tell you, lock it so that your wires come out to the middle. Okay? Because what you're going to want to do is you're going to bring your wires together and go straight down as one. You're going to have your wires over here for your bed as well that need to go down in there. And they're going to probably come down motor here. So this slot down here is probably where we're going to be bringing our motor wires. So we'll probably bring this over to this one, come straight down and bring our motor wires in here. Right, so we'll bring this one over to join with this one, bring them straight down and join it and come down through. So when you mount your motors, you don't have your pulleys on yours. I already have my pulleys on mine. Mount your motors, just grab 2 of your motors. They're all the same, except for the one for your extruder. And we're gonna mount them on here with the wires coming towards the inside of the printer, right? And these are gonna get mounted. Dear God, please tell me they are mounting these with like M3x8s or M3x10. M3x8s. And you should be able to mount these no problem because I don't think you have any you should be able to get these mounted because you should have the M3x8s and have plenty or you can mount these without having to worry about the whether or not you've mounted the pulleys yet or not. And left side is high, right side is mount these with the motor wires coming towards the inside. So M3x8, our motor wire connectors are coming inside. 3x8 there. Okay, M3x10 should still work. I don't think you're going to bottom them out. Oh yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things I'm going to do is take a look at this and really focus on the bomb after this. Because this is showing me that the bomb is definitely inaccurate. And once again, the calling for an M3x30, yeah, I get it because you're trying to reduce the number of screws, but doing an M3x30 on this front low bearing, why are you going to have somebody crank 2 centimeters into plastic? That's too much in my opinion. And yeah, M3x10 will definitely work here. Like I said, the CAD says M3x8. And if I'm really lucky, my pulleys still line up. If I'm not, then I'll have to adjust them, and yeah, they're going to need adjustment, which I kind of expected. So what we're going to want when you go to put your pulleys and set screws on, one, remember you always want to, the first set screw you set is going to be against the flat of the shaft. Okay, the flat of the shaft. That makes sure that the pulley is pulled tight against the round edge of the shaft, and then you do the other one. This pulley should line up with these two top bearings, right? So top bearing, and pulley should all be the same range. On this side, bottom bearing, and bottom pulley teeth should all be lined up. So adjust your pulleys, not your pulleys, and adjust them to the right spot. You want to use Loctite on your set screw. Okay? Always, always, always use Loctite on your set screw. Otherwise, what'll happen is you'll start having belt slippage, or what seems like belt slippage, and it's because your pulleys are actually spinning on the motor shaft, is what winds up happening. So and I'm going to get this close, eyeballing it, going to get it close. And when we go to put the belts on, the other thing you do is once you get your belts run, you can loosen these set screws just like a quarter turn, move your gantry, and it'll spin your motors, and it will self-align up or down as needed. So and if you look at them from the side, that's where you're going to see the height, whether things are adjusted and aligned height-wise, because you'll have the bearing stack on each side, and then you'll be seeing your pulley right in the middle. So that will give you a good indicator of whether you're lined up or not. Yeah, I'll show you the motors real quick. So here are the motors. I've got the ones that use the plug. I'm not sure if you got ones where it's an integrated connection. I have them facing the inside. The CAD shows them facing the back. I want them facing the inside for some wire management. If they're facing the back, you're fine. That's no big deal. Or you can do them this way. I do this just to make my wire management cleaner and to keep less things from going out the back of a printer. And then this is what I was saying, where if you look at it from the side, if I can get, if you look at the printer from the side, what you're doing is you want to get down at eye level, look at it from the side between those two pulleys, and you'll see between the two idler stacks and the pulley, you're trying to line that up. Same thing on the other side. Look at it just like that between the two idler stacks, and you'll see the pulley. You'll be able to line it up by eyeball really, really close. And quick question, Tugboat, do you have a metal gear? Do you have a large metal gear for your geared Z? I cannot remember if it was in the bomb or not. That's why I want to ask. Yes? Okay. So, so you can 3D print this gear, and I don't think, I have to double check. I don't think I have the right metal gear, unless it's the same one that I used for one of the dragsters. If so, then I may have one. If not, then I may have to print mine, which is no big deal. It'll be very similar. Oh, hey. Ah. I have one, but I think that's enough. Guess I need to order one of those that are all 3D printed one on this one. What I was going to do is go ahead and just grab the other motor, D motor, and install that since we're installing motors. Oh, okay. No, not a problem. I'm probably going to be dropping off here somewhat shortly anyhow. So on this one, there's a couple things we can do. If we come out the side, right, we can come out this side right here. The way the pad actually shows it is mounting it with your wire connector going down to the bottom plate. I'm just going to say no, because that's kind of a pain in the tuchus. I would much rather do it where the wire's coming out this way. Oh, hold on. Let me think about that. Because if it goes down, then you've got a connector that's facing down, and that's not going to work because it'll be touching whatever surface this is riding on. You can't take it out this way. Because maybe you can't, you should be able to take it out this way unless your shaft sticks out too far. Let me look at this. So we should be good there. So we can come out this way. The reason I say we can't come out this way is our power supply mount, right? So if our power supply is going to mount here, it's got a piece that comes here to do the mount. So you're still not going to be able to get in there and unplug. So based on how everything's going, rather than have it facing down towards this panel, I am going to choose to have it facing this way. So I might be able to come in here and unplug it if I need to. That's how I'm going to do it. And what is it calling for as far as mount? Still doing, I think we should be able to do the M3x8s or 10s. Most likely. Yeah, M3x10s. So we're going to mount this using M3x10s. And right now we're just mounting it. We're not trying to get anything lined up or anything. We're just going to mount them up. And so this, you've got one fixed hole and two holes that will let you rotate this motor some. So you don't want this fully tight. We'll tighten this after we get our belt and stuff on, but this is going to allow us to flip our belt over it. Then we'll rotate it up to tighten the belt pad. So for now, we're going to put this in, but we're going to keep all of our screws slightly loose, just so we have the ability to rotate and slide this around. We're just trying to get our motor mounted. And gonna have to out a little bit more. So in my case, I need to try and loosen up my set screws because this is gonna have to pull out a little bit more. work on getting all this lined up for the fact. Like I said, I'm just trying to get the motor on the printer for now. We'll worry about getting everything up in a little bit. Tugboat, I know you guys are taking off. I'm not going to stick on here too much longer. I'm just going to add maybe one or two more things. Excuse me. Then call it a night myself. So one of those things, since we're playing with bearings, and also notice on mine, I'm using the full one piece here. I think I sent you that one piece as well. If not, you would have 3 sets, 3 heat sinks. Potentially 3 heat sinks or just 3 M3 screws going directly. You could have this full one piece like I do here. What I'm going to do now is look at top mount here and the other bearing stack. That is an M5 by 25. M5 by 25. So I think this is my M5 by 20. That's a whole lot of thread to be putting in here, but that thread is going to be going between these 4 holes. Now here's something that I was looking at and it was throwing me off. This mounts in the back and then you've got these 4 holes here. Well, you'll notice that these are slight slots, right? So this motor can rotate and pivot somewhat, and that sets the tension between this, the motor and the larger drive gear. What this is going to do is set our belt tension between the drive pulley at the bottom and this pulley at the top. And what that's going to do is we'll have this in there, but we won't have it tightened down. We'll have 4 M3 by 16 screws here. And that's going to enable us to lift this up somewhat because these screws line up with the top edge of the plate. So we're literally going to be pushing off of this, or the extrusion. Now, I don't like that. I was kind of looking to see if one of the other printed parts was like a blank plate that would go in there. And it's not. There isn't one. And the reason I'm kind of saying I don't necessarily like that is because it means we're going to literally be pushing screws off the top of our extrusion, and we're going to mar the extrusion, right? So if I take and hide this piece right, so these screws, these 4 M3 by 16 screws are going right onto that aluminum extrusion, which means as I tighten these up, they're going to mar this top extrusion. Yeah, it gets a little bit heavy. The motors are what's adding all the weight to it. And that's why I say it kind of gets back heavy because you have the weight here, the weight here, and the weight here. So you got 3 motors right on the back plane. And it kind of gets a little back heavy. But once you add the power supply and stuff down here, it sits pretty good. This will be our end stop, which I believe is going to get mounted down on this lower rail down here in this area. But so M3 by 25. We do want this to bite in there a decent amount because as we're using these, we want it to raise the whole thing up and it's going to provide tension again. We don't want to snap this. So this is going to add that strength all the way through the part. All right, sounds good, Tugboat. Like I said, I'm just going to mount this. And even though once I get my other bolts in, all of these are going to get swapped out for whatchamacallit, blackhead, and black anodized socket head. Can't use my language sometimes. So we're going to take this and run it in there. Go slow. We don't want to hear cracking. We're cutting threads as we're doing this. Why I said it might be useful. Just go ahead and, in this case, because I'm hearing some, I may just literally tap this hole and then come back and run my screw in after I tap it. Because as you're cutting threads with screws, there's no place for that plastic to go except get driven through it. Which gives you more of a chance of breaking the part. What do I want to? I'm actually going to use my drill taps because it has even more spot for stuff to come out. So getting this, I want to get the other one. So I'm just going to drill and Tugboat, if you're still here, do you have a set of taps? Like metric taps? If not, you might want to get a set from Harbor Freight or something if you're going to be building printers more and more. They come in handy. I have had extrusions for blind joints that were not tapped enough, and I've had to go in and tap them deeper. I've had times where I've tapped my own extrusions, like I did for your build. You know, and made my own whatchamacallit, made my own parts. So yeah, it's a good tool or set of tools to have, like a tap and die set. If you got a Harbor Freight, go to Harbor Freight and get a Pittsburgh tap and die set. I believe it has both SAE and metric, and I don't think it's really that expensive either. But tapping threads in here versus cutting them may be good, especially since this part was printed like this. So your layer lines are going with that screw. So if you're screwing it in, you may wind up busting the part. And if you have to reprint it, I would almost suggest reprinting it in this orientation so that the printed part or the layer lines go this way. Well, yeah, it should be opposite of the way that we're screwing this one in. Just something to think of. So we got that pulley in there. I'm gonna go ahead and do the M5s in the back. The M3 by 16s. I am not gonna put those in just yet. We'll get the belt run. You know, once we get the rest of the Z put together, we'll run the belt. Then we'll add those M3 by 16s because we'll use those to add tension to the axis. M5 rolling T-nuts. BRM 5 by 8s again. And we'll that was pretty darn close to being spot on center. I wasn't even trying. And that, folks, is where I'm going to drop off for the night. Like I said, we're trying to build from the bottom up. We've got our idlers, brackets in place. We've got our rear motors in place with our rear bearing stacks. We got our Z-axis going with the bed added in here so that we can close that up. I've added the lower plate for right now. If I need to, I can take this back off and then reestablish it later. We do have our Z motor here. It's just literally lightly screwed in so that I can still pivot it. And we'll adjust the pulley on the Z motor once we get the rest of our Z drive in place. I need to get either a metal gear or print the gear and put it together with a pulley like you can do for a Voron. I'm going to need a closed loop timing belt as well, and a couple of other things. We still need to mount our rails. Once we get our rails mounted, we'll be able to do our XY gantry as well. So all in all, things are coming together. Like I said, the more I think about it, I am not going to stream next week during the week. I'm going to be visiting my son while I was out there at Murph. I did not get a chance to spend time with my son and feel real bad about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just dedicate the time that I'm out there with my son, and we will come back and work on this the following week. That gives Tugboat some time to get some additional parts if he needs it. You can take a look at the bomb and see if there's anything else called for in the bomb, or should we in the CAD that he does not have. And if he can get me a list, I'll go and I'll order it on Amazon, have it shipped. That's perfectly. But we still have the little idlers fit into the front here to do. We'll have the y-axis, the x-axis, then it'll be belting, building the bed, and then we'll get into the tool head and wiring. So we made some good progress. We're going to have a couple more streams to do on this. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming in and hanging out. We're going to continue with this build, and I look forward to it. It's really a cool little build. These Rook printers are really awesome little printers. They once you get them built, they dial in so easily and nicely, and they're very portable. Like I said, I have brought a couple of Rooks to numerous events. I've taken one or two into the office and showed them off at the office. So they're great printers. I think it's going to be great for tugboat folks and their mission statement to bring 3D printing to the next generation. So I'm really happy that I have the ability to do this with them. Like I said, we'll figure out some of these other things as we go along. But thank you all so much for being here. Let me find a raid target real fast. So let's see who all's available. What is it? It's Thursday night, right? Week is gone. So it's Thursday night, which normally means Big Jano and community marble racing. So let's see. I think we're still early enough that he can do marble race. Yep, he's on. He's still doing some work. So fixing things on his oval. So let's go ahead. Yeah, he's got his whole, looks like his whole head's. That's good. There's a loading opportunity right there. Hey, Liz, welcome in. So I'm going to go ahead and get the raid started over to Jano, and I will work on getting this VOD posted at least to Twitch tonight. And oh, there you are, Tugboat. I'm going to try and get this posted to Twitch tonight and get it ready to export over to YouTube and make it available on YouTube as well, and start building that YouTube playlist. But yeah, definitely going to have to dig through here and validate the CAD versus the bomb. But thanks a lot, Tugboat, for hanging out. Sorry that we're having so many issues with the weirdness. Real fast, your screw pack, is it the silver or the black? You have silver or black screw? Actually, I'll hit you up via Discord. The reason being is I'm just gonna get you some bulk pack of M3 and M5s and you, so we should have things covered. If there's anything else, I'll chat with you on Discord and we'll try and get anything else covered up. But we're getting ready to raid out now, so thank you everybody. Have a great one. We'll see you on Saturday. Bye now.